Mother podcast. Today, we're talking again about mastering your own unique resilience. And I have a special guest with yet another way to uniquely approach building your resilience. I have Megan Mary here, who's the founder of Women's Dreams Analysis, and she's here to share her story today. Megan, thank you for being here. Please tell us more about you.
Thank you, Tiffany. It's such a pleasure to be here. So I'm a dream analyst, and I work exclusively with women to help them harness the transformative power of their dreams. And I came to that after a series of chronic illness diagnoses and a really difficult mind, body, spirit time that led me to a healing journey that involved meditation and journaling, and ultimately led me back to the dream work that I had started when I was probably a teenager. And it really instilled in me the profound belief that our dreams are very much our inner guidance, that they have so much for us, and that if we learn to appreciate them, to listen to them, and also the skills to decode them, that they can really be our guiding light on our personal journeys.
Now, for someone who doesn't know what dream work is, can you explain that just a little bit?
So dream work is really first acknowledging that we all dream, and acknowledging that they are actually coming from ourselves, that they're guidance for us. And whether you call it dream interpretation or dream analysis, dream work is just the process of doing self-development work through the modality of dreams.
And you said you started with that as a teenager. So how did you know about that as a teenager? Was it a gift or was it an experience? Or
when I was a child, I used to have recurring dreams, both nightmares and wonderful flying dreams. And I really wanted to know what they were about, why I was having them, where I went when I dreamed, why we spent so much time in the dream world. And I was always fascinated by everything that was mysterious, metaphysical, esoteric, philosophical, psychological, everything, and I just couldn't get enough. I was always diving down rabbit holes and researching everything I could. And when I was a teenager, I ran across a book on lucid dreaming, and I was hooked. I was completely fascinated and wanted to master it for myself. And I did. Attain lucidity. I wouldn't say I became a master at that time, but it was enough to really keep me so interested. And I think as I got older, I got busy with my career, and I got really wrapped up with other things and stopped paying attention to them. And it wasn't until I got really sick that I was led back.
And when you were sick, what was it that led it back? Was it the downtime and the being sick, or was it just this call back to it?
I think it was the realization that I needed to do a lot of inner healing, because functionally our bodies represent conditions many times and dis-ease when we're not in alignment. And so I think there was a lot of different things that I had shifted away from, or shut down, or turned off, because I didn't know how to integrate them with the life that I'd created. And that was creating a disalignment that was creating conditions in my body, manifesting them in my body physically. And so I realized that I needed to do a lot of inner work to heal both my mind and spirit along with my body, to really come back and be able to offer something to the world.
And with that, I want to tie it back into resilience. I'm curious what resilience means to you, because to me, it sounds like your journey was stepping back into your truth and then owning it resiliently and not compromising on it again. But how would you define that?
Yes, I feel that resilience is finding that inner strength inside yourself, that inner knowing, and in that inner stillness and foundation, where you no longer, like you said, compromise yourself. You no longer doubt yourself. And it's also just being your own inner strength to persevere through difficulties, because we're all going to encounter different difficulties and we don't know what they're going to be. And many times we get them all at once. And it becomes very overwhelming, but it's also still many times the way that we are able to be jarred a little bit into making a change.
And how do you feel dreams help you with that? What is it that helps you feel more in alignment by listening to them or interpreting them? For someone who doesn't quite understand that, or maybe dreams, but has never thought to look back and reflect on what that dream meant.
I think so many times we're not taught in our society to appreciate dreams, and we're not taught at all why we do or what we can do with them. And so we push them down, we discard them, we criticize them, we say, oh, well, that's silly, or it's weird, or I can't explain it, or I'm embarrassed by it, or I don't get it, and it doesn't mean anything. In fact, I'm just going to stop remembering them altogether. So a lot of people say, well, I don't dream. It's like, well, you do, but you've turned that off because you don't want to tune into that. And so our dreams are really comprised from our subconscious, and our subconscious makes up 95% of our brain, and only the 5% is conscious. And so we think we know what's going on, but in fact, it's just the tip of the iceberg, and the whole rest of it is really latent in our shadow. And so when we can pay attention to our dreams and we start to decode them with our own dream language, because everyone's unique and different, then you're able to start seeing your themes, your perspectives, your blockages, your fears, your talents, everything that you might not be fully in tune with is represented in your dreams, because it's the story that's coming from your higher self, from your universal self, not necessarily the one that you're just living on the hamster wheel with that 5%.
I was thinking as you're saying that some people dream in color and some dream in black and white. Is it possible to change that, or is there something about that with dreams? Does that mean anything?
That's a good question. I think there are, of course, reasons that can affect people's dream capacity and dream recall, and I feel that falls under that scenario. So many times, of course, if you have a injury to the brain, or you're taking medication, or you've suffered a severe trauma, there's so many reasons that can affect that, that would be one of them, as well as your dream recall. And so those things need to be taken into account, of course. And it's not a substitute for any kind of medical treatment or any kind of true trauma treatment. But that being said, I consider it the ultimate in women's self-care, because it's really just another modality like journaling or energy work or anything else to heal yourself, to give yourself the opportunity to tap into your own healing capacity.
I love how you were talking about the higher self. It's like your higher self is trying to give you your truth to heal you and to help you know you're stepping into the right path. Am I wording that right?
Yes.
And so what's the difference for you? Were you able to overcome all of those problems with this? Like, what's been the difference for you? And what is the difference you've seen in someone else and their resilience?
It's been a huge part of my healing journey. I, of course, am being treated by practitioners as well. And I've overcome at least one of the chronic illnesses, but I'm still on my healing journey, and we all are. And we all have to take care of ourselves to make sure that, especially with autoimmune, that it can resurface, it can develop into other conditions. And so you really got to be mindful of that. But for me, it has really allowed me to follow that inner knowing that I felt, okay, I really do feel called to do this. I'm really afraid to do this, but I feel like I have to. And it gave me that confidence with all the different messages that I started receiving in my dreams and all the different guidance that I received. And then when I turned around and started offering that to other women, they were just in every instance really just blown away, because they never had experienced their own dreams in that in that manner. They'd never considered them that way. Even some of them that had gone to other dream interpreters, quote unquote, had never actually experienced it in that way. And they always come away saying, wow, this was really transformational for me. I had such insight now. Now I'm going to really start paying attention, and I'm going to start telling other people, and I'm going to start encouraging my clients to do the same.
Can you manipulate your dreams to a point? Like, do you have any kind of control in them, or where they go, or not?
Yes, and that's lucid dreaming, and it does take intention and dedication and practice. And so I don't do it all the time, but I have been able to do that. And the more you do it, the better you get at it, I would say, because it really is a muscle that you flex in your mind, so to speak. And it can be a great modality for healing in terms of nightmares and recurring dreams and disturbing situations where you are having this dream that you always find yourself in, but you don't know how to get out of that situation, and end up waking up and just being really upset about it and not really knowing how to process it. And so when you're able to practice and attain the state of lucidity, you're actually then able to influence the outcome of the dream in a positive way that can break that cycle and change the outcome.
I asked because I did that once when I was young. I had a very disturbing dream that was in a maze, and I was lost, and there were these creatures and things, and it was so bad to the point I slept in my parents' room for a while. And
Yes.
it tried to come back when I was older, and I finally realized I could go back to that dream and I could change the ending. And it did what you just said. It resolved it. And it was no longer a nightmare because it had a resolution to it. Whereas before, there was a sense of being trapped and stuff. So
Yes.
dreams have different purposes. So like nightmares versus flying dreams versus falling dreams. Can you speak to some of those different kind of dreams? Because I've heard of people having falling dreams like I have. I've had flying dreams. I've had the nightmares. So they all must have some meaning to them.
Mm-hmm. So I have a method that I use, and I call it the dream mirror method. And one of the key points of it is the mood, which really means focus on your emotions of the dreams. Because you could say to me, well, what does a flying dream mean? Well, I could tell you right now that I've had amazing, vivid, joyful flying dreams. And I've also had really frustrating, I can't get off the ground, I can't fly and get away from whatever I'm trying to get away from dreams. So flying just in itself, you don't really know. So how did you feel in that dream? What was the experience emotionally is really where it's at. And that goes for everything. So whether it's your teeth falling out or you're being lost or whatever, you don't want to, I don't want to assume what feeling it is that you're having, because it might be something totally different. Well, I felt really frustrated, or I felt really sad, or whatever. That emotion is really what's going to be the underlying thread that's going to help us get to the meaning.
And how is this different from like meditation? Because I think some people think, oh, well, I can go internally and I can meditate and I can visualize and I can manifest. What's that difference between those things and dreaming?
So the similarities I'll start with, and that's the brainwave state. So when you meditate and when you dream, in both instances, you're in the theta brainwave, which is different from what we're in right now, which is beta. And so there is a lot of similarity there, which is why when you start to meditate more, you start to become more aware of your dream world. And so I really encourage meditation as part of dream work. But where it's different, of course, is that when you meditate, you're still in your AKA waking world versus your dream world. When you enter your dream world, you are most times an observer versus a participant. And so you're not able to control where you enter, even if you're a lucid dreamer. You probably aren't going to be able to control where you come in. You might then be able to control what happens after that. And so the difference is that, of course, when we meditate, when we dream, everything is coming from our subconscious. And when we meditate, we're awake in a different state. We're in theta, but we're in a different collaboration of theta, so that we're able to receive information, but we're also able to put in information. It's a much more collaborative experience than your typical dream, which is where lucidity comes in, because then you're able to actually collaborate with the subconscious, which is a totally different level.
Which is rewiring the brain in a lot
Yes.
of ways. And that's where the healing positive effects can occur
Exactly.
with the process. And really, it sounds like a lot of understanding that you have control. You have more control and you have the knowledge that you need inside of you already in a lot of cases, but you may not be listening to your body or listening to the messages that your body's trying to give you through dreams or through your subconscious.
Correct. And that's why I call it dream empowerment, because I feel that it is really so empowering when you realize that you have it within you, and you
Mm.
have something that is always with you every night you go to sleep, that is trying to take little aspects of your life and recombine them and send you messages to help you along your way. And you don't have to go read a book to obtain that or get a certificate to obtain that. It's something that's coming from you. And so it's supposed to be really the tools to help you for the rest of your life.
Yeah. And then you have the awareness to see when things are off sooner and be able to
Yes.
correct it through like
Yes.
changing the nightmare into a more productive dream and resolving and releasing those things.
And also just clearing out a lot of the things that you're carrying with you that you didn't realize you were.
Mhm.
Oh, when I was little, this happened, and maybe it wasn't something super traumatic, so you just discarded it and you thought, well, that's a silly thing, and that didn't affect me, but maybe it did, and maybe it's affected every decision that you've made after that, and you don't realize that, and you're still carrying that around, and that's going to come out in your dream stories.
And you talked about beta, theta. Some people know what that is, some don't. Could you explain those different states a little bit? And also with that, I really like music in those different states, and maybe talk about how music and vibration and brain waves all interplay with each other.
Yes, absolutely. So one of the modalities that I use in my dream work is sound frequency. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because I feel that that's one of the most accessible ways to change our vibration and change our frequency, because we're just listening to the music, and everything is energy. And so when emotions are energy, our existence is energy, we give off energy, we share energy, we pick up on other people's energy. And sound is energy as well. And so sound has a real ability to, depending on the frequency, help us to transmute the different things that are coming up in our dreams. And so the different brainwave states, so we, like I was saying, are in beta, which is like the normal consciousness state. And then below that is alpha, which is awake but drowsy. And then below that is theta, which is the dreams, when you're in REM, when you're meditating. And below that is delta, which is that really deep, dreamless sleep where you're very asleep, but you're not in REM. And the only other one that is on that spectrum is on all the way at the top is gamma, which is the really heightened perception range. And so I really encourage people to start to spend more time in theta, because that is where I call it sort of the middle world, the world in between the waking and the dreaming. And I feel
Mhm.
that in that state, and a lot of scientists have tried to dwell in that state to get creative solutions to their inventions. And that is really where I feel we can receive a lot of guidance, a lot of messages, a lot of ideas, a lot of light bulbs. And that's because we're lowering it down just a notch from the busyness of our normal go to. And so it has a lot of health benefits, obviously, too, to regularly go into that state. And the more we become aware of that state, the more we really just heighten our spiritual intelligence about our existence and the different states that we can access.
I also love how you brought energy into it. I feel like we need to be more responsible for the energy that we have and realize that what we're putting out doesn't just affect us, that we can take energy in and out, and we are meant to be in harmony with one another, and that can even be in our dreams. If you were to encourage a mother, let's say, to help her children be more aware of their dreams and embrace more of what you're talking about so they don't lose it like you were talking about as they get older, what would be some ways to help them embrace their dreams?
In so many cultures, not our Western culture, but in so many other cultures, they do have dream sharing as part of their cultural tradition. And so the family will come around the table and for breakfast in the morning, and they will all share their dreams. Or within the tribe, they will share their dreams and respect them as visions and prophecies. And so there are other modalities that we can adopt as part of our traditions to really start to have what Montague Ullman calls dream appreciation. That's really what he was about. And he called himself a recovering psychoanalyst because he felt that it doesn't need to be the foray of psychoanalysis and just therapists. It should be that dreams are for everyone because we're all having them, and that we should all be able to have appreciation and sharing be part of our everyday life. And so children do readily share them because they don't really understand, not that we do either, but they don't really understand the difference between dreaming and waking. And so they get very scared many times by what they experience there, and they don't really understand that it's not here. And so they're going to readily share them anyway. And so it's important to just not squelch that, I think, because as we get older, we feel, well, I'm not a kid anymore. Now I can't talk about that. And when someone does bring it up, as soon as you bring it up to someone, oh, I had this crazy dream, then people want to share it. They want to talk over you and share theirs because finally somebody can talk about it. So I think it just needs to be a more regular part of our lifestyle. And that will then encourage our own curiosity as well as acceptance of what we're discovering.
And it sounds like this very genius creative state that we all would want to be in anyway, and should be in more often, that level of awareness of our connecting our conscious with our subconscious, and that higher self that you're talking about. And the more that children are able to do that from a younger age, the more resilient they'll be to stay to their truth as they become older. Do you ever use art as part of the process? I'm seeing the painting behind you and just thinking about dreams I've had that sometimes I've drawn them out. And I'm just wondering if that's part of what you do as well.
It's interesting that you say that, and I think I will have to integrate that at some point. I have experienced it on the other end of things because I many times, of course, work with many other practitioners, and I've done art as part of some of their journeys. And I do know that the association that I'm part of, the International Association for the Study of Dreams, does have a whole part of their convention that is on dream art. So I think it's a wonderful way to really experience the images that we encounter and also to process them. So it's kind of the next step on journaling. And you don't even really need to be artistically inclined as long as you can somehow put that, when you do that translation from your subconscious to your conscious, you're actually, bringing that stuff into your waking awareness. So I think it's a fabulous way to integrate what you're processing.
Is there any other part of dreaming that people should be aware of? Like, what's the best way to set yourself up to be able to have dreams if you're not and you want to get back in tune with that?
Dream journaling in general is really healing. Keeping a dream journal is something that I always recommend. And also, if you're just getting in the beginning stages of trying to remember your dreams, when you wake up in the morning, set your clock early and hit that snooze button, or just sit still for a minute before you jump up and keep your eyes closed and try and think backwards for a minute. Try and think about what you were just experiencing, talking about, seeing, doing. And it takes a few minutes and it takes some concentration, but if you give yourself that space, you can start. It's almost like you're falling back asleep, but you're not. And you're just meditating, but you're not. And you're just sort of dwelling in that middle space. And that's how you can start to, if it's not immediately in your mind, that's how you can start to bring those things from that other world into your waking world.
I love the idea of a dream journal, because then you can kind of dialogue what the story is that you're telling and see if there's patterns or if there are different things that are coming up that aren't resolved. Or on the other hand, if something keeps pointing in one direction along the way, is that some of the power of the journaling as well?
Yes, absolutely. And especially powerful with recurring dreams, because then it allows you to look at the threads amongst those dreams. Oh, I had that dream again where X happens, but it was a little bit different this time because X. And so you can start to see what's common and what's uncommon in that recurring dream. Because when we have recurring dreams, it's many times because we're not paying attention to the message. And so it's going to keep trying to recombine the message it wants to send to us with different scenarios. So the more that we can pay attention to that, the closer we're going to get to accessing that meaning.
Can you sometimes misinterpret a dream because it's something you really want, but it's actually a warning to you? I had that experience once where I saw something, I was in a relationship, and it was like, this is what's going to happen if you're in the relationship. But I misinterpreted it as this is a good thing. And later it turned out to not be such a good thing.
I think that the biggest risk of misinterpreting is looking at dream dictionaries. So I always talk about not, breaking up with your dream dictionary, because that is someone else's meanings, some other archetypal cultural meaning that is not necessarily for you. And so I think those can definitely lead you down the wrong path. In terms of learning your own dream language, in my work, I don't usually, unless they're visitational dreams, I don't usually perceive dreams as being literal. And so I think many times people will look at something literally and say, well, I had a dream that I died or that someone else died, and that means that's going to happen. And not necessarily. So I like to look at the metaphor of the dream and also just consider all the other elements. It's needs to be looked at as a whole story. So I don't want to just pick out one thing and say, I dreamt about a horse. Oh, a horse means this. So it must mean that. What was the scenario? What was the emotions? What was the landscape? What other people were there? What was said? What was the weather like? What did you have on? What did you do? There's so much more detail that and you're not saying because you're just summarizing it to be quick, because you don't know who you're going to tell anyway, or who's going to want to listen to the long dream account, right? So you're just saying, oh, I dreamt about a horse last night, or I dreamt I lost my car last night, but you're not really saying everything else. And so when you start to really write down everything else, that's where you start to see how it's very unique for you.
And that makes so much sense, because what I'm particularly thinking of, like, I put the emotion I wanted on it and I let it go. So I'm like, oh, I want that. Instead of, why is this coming to me, going deeper on it, allowing it to flow a little bit more for me. I just took the bit out of it that I wanted at the time, instead of exploring the whole thing of what is this telling me, and exploring that detail. So that makes a lot of sense. I love these tools. I love to bring anything creative or a little different, or be able to bring another way of being resilient to the clients that I work with building resilience. And I think it is a lot more of the Eastern culture things that we need to get back in tune with, and explore what other cultures are doing for healing. And I'm glad we're embracing more and more of that in our culture over here in the United States now. It's great we have the medical, but I really believe the two together work the best. And it sounds like that's the case for you. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, because obviously I think in medical science, we we're so focused on being specialists that we look just at one specific little thing. Okay, well, your eyesight's failing or you're having stomach issues, and so we're just going to look at that one thing and we're going to give you a prescription for it. And we don't really look at the larger issue of the emotions that are going on in your world, of the different lifestyle situations, of your wellness habits or lack thereof. And so I feel like to really incorporate wellness into our lives, we have to incorporate mind, body, and spirit modalities all
Yes.
together.
Yes. The whole person. And we are more than the sum of our parts. And we're also got that spiritual energy, whatever you want to call it, side to us, and the energy centers. And the more that I've learned about those and seeing if they're in alignment or what I feel there, has created such a deeper level of awareness that I didn't know was available, because we're just not really taught those things. We might be taught, well, do you feel good, or do you have a burning in the bosom, or do you feel lighter, or different things? But there's so much more to it than just a feeling. It's about that alignment and that truth that we have. And when we're there, it seems like we're able to like have almost a protection around us, and things bounce off of us easier and don't get in or penetrate and throw us off of that balance or that alignment, as we're more grounded within, this is my truth, this is who I am, and I'm staying here and I'm staying with me. So that's what I love
Yeah,
about it.
absolutely.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for being here. I really think this will serve our audience and give you some new insights and creative ideas of ways that you can explore healing and building your resilience for yourself and for your families. It might be through the art or music that we've talked about, or just embracing and celebrating dreams and realizing that they have a purpose and they're not something to just be dismissed. If you'd like to work with Megan, where can they find you? Do you have anything special coming up?
Yeah, so you can find me at womensdreamanalysis.com. And I have on there, I offer dream sessions as well as dream journeys, which are a series of sessions based around specific needs. I also have online self-paced dream courses for women that will help you learn my method and practice the different techniques therein. I also have a podcast called Women's Dream Enlightenment, where I do live dream interpretations. And I have a community called Women's Dream Collective, where women come and seek, share, and support each other on their journeys.
Wonderful. All right. Well, we're around the holidays, so I want to say Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all that stuff, hence the hat. And I hope you've enjoyed this series this December. I'm looking forward to serving you in the new year as we bring you more of the Resilient Mother podcast. And we'll see you next time.